Not every story on this channel ends in a courtroom. Not every reckoning involves lawyers or divorce papers or a process server at the door. Sometimes, karma arrives in the form of a color-coded spreadsheet, 14 itemized violations, and a neighbor who deeply, sincerely wished she had never started something she had absolutely no idea how to finish. This is the story of Margaret, and the 94-page document that ruined her year. Let's call our main character Becca, 36 years old. Moved into her house on Elmwood Close 3 years ago with her partner, 2 houseplants she kept alive longer than expected, and a golden retriever named Biscuit, who had never, in 4 years of living, caused a single problem for anyone. The street was quiet, friendly enough. People waved. Nobody borrowed sugar, but nobody caused drama either. A perfectly unremarkable suburban peace. And then there was Margaret. Margaret was 61 years old, recently retired, and had apparently decided that her life's second act would be dedicated entirely to the enforcement of the Homeowners Association regulations. She had a notebook. She had a pen. She had a folding chair she occasionally placed near her front window. She had, by the time Becca moved in, already filed complaints against 17 different households in 3 years. 17. On one street. That had 22 houses. The other neighbors spoke about Margaret the way people speak about weather systems, with resignation, with exhausted acceptance. That's just Margaret, they said, best not to engage. Becca, being new, had not yet received this briefing. Margaret's issue with Becca began with something completely unreasonable. She did not like Biscuit. Not because Biscuit had done anything wrong. Not because Biscuit had barked or dug up her garden or caused any trouble whatsoever. Margaret simply did not like dogs. And since she could not report Biscuit for existing, she began reporting Becca for everything adjacent to it. Over 4 months, Margaret filed 11 separate complaints with the HOA about Becca's property. 11. In 4 months. Let us take a moment to appreciate the dedication. Complaint 1. Becca's recycling bin had been left 2 inches outside its designated area on collection day. 2 inches. Someone measured. Complaint 2. Her garden hose was visible from the street and constituted, according to Margaret, an eyesore. Complaint 3. Biscuit's water bowl, which lived on the front step, was apparently a violation of Section 4. Subsection C, regarding exterior personal effects. Margaret had not actually read Section 4. Subsection C, she had simply assumed. Complaints 4 through 7 involved various iterations of grass height, a wind chime by the front door, a doormat Margaret described in her formal complaint as aggressively casual, and a solar-powered garden light that Margaret claimed shone into her bedroom window at night. It faced the opposite direction. Becca had a photograph. Complaints 8 through 11 escalated. Becca's car was parked 1 foot further from the curb than Margaret deemed appropriate. A friend had visited and parked on the street for 4 hours. A package had been left on the front step for 6 hours before Becca collected it. And, most gravely, Biscuit had, on one occasion, briefly sat on the pavement outside Margaret's house before being called back. Biscuit had sat on the pavement, outside her house, for approximately 40 seconds. This was complaint 11. Becca had received 11 formal letters in 4 months. The HOA had investigated each one and found no actual violation in 9 of them. But the letters kept coming, and Becca had had enough. On a Friday evening, after complaint 11 arrived, Becca sat down with a large glass of wine, her laptop, and the Elmwood Close Homeowners Association Residential Guidelines document. All 94 pages of it. She had never read it before. She suspected Margaret hadn't either. Not properly. Not all of it. She was correct. What Becca found, over the course of that Friday evening and most of Saturday morning, a second glass of wine had been involved by this point, was that Margaret herself was in violation of 14 separate rules. 14. In her own home, on her own property, that she had been policing for 3 years. The violations included a fence panel that exceeded the permitted height by 4 inches, a satellite dish installed without the required written consent of the HOA board, a garden ornament, specifically a ceramic frog, placed within a prohibited zone near the shared boundary, 3 different paint colors on exterior trim that were not on the approved palette, and an unauthorized structure in the back garden that Margaret called a meditation shed and the HOA guidelines called a non-compliant outbuilding. And Becca's personal favorite, Rule 67, subsection B, which prohibited any resident from filing more than 3 complaints per calendar quarter without written evidence of prior personal mediation attempts. Margaret had filed 11 complaints. She had attempted 0 mediations. Not once. Becca put down her wine, opened a new spreadsheet, and began photographing everything. The following Monday morning, Becca submitted 14 formal HOA complaints against Margaret, each one accompanied by photographic evidence, precise measurements where relevant, and the specific rule number being violated. The spreadsheet was color-coded. Each violation had its own tab. She also submitted a separate formal notice citing Rule 67, subsection B, and requesting that all of Margaret's previous complaints against Becca be formally reviewed in light of Margaret's own non-compliance record. The HOA board, who had been quietly exhausted by Margaret for years, responded within 48 hours. This was, by all accounts, unprecedented. Margaret received 14 violation notices. The fines totaled $2,340. The meditation shed alone was $450. She was also formally notified that her complaint privileges had been suspended pending review of her Rule 67 violations, which meant she could no longer file complaints about anyone, for anything, until the review was completed. The review took 4 months. During those 4 months, Elmwood Close was the most peaceful it had been in 3 years. Someone organized a street barbecue. 3 households submitted their own long-held complaints against Margaret. The HOA board held its longest meeting in recorded history. Margaret tried to get the rulebook amended. The board declined both times. One board member, who had himself received a Margaret complaint 3 years earlier about his Christmas lights, declined with what witnesses described as visible satisfaction. Margaret's house went on the market 7 months after the complaints were filed. It sold within 3 weeks. On the morning the sold sign went up, Becca was walking Biscuit past the house when she noticed 3 of her neighbors standing on their respective front steps, all looking at the sign, all with the same expression. One of them, a man named Gerald, who had lived on the street for 11 years and received 4 Margaret complaints himself, caught Becca's eye across the road. He said nothing. He simply raised his morning coffee cup in her direction. Becca raised Biscuit's lead in return. Biscuit wagged his tail, as he always did, because Biscuit had never had a problem with anyone. There is a particular kind of person who believes that rules exist to give them power over other people, who reads the regulations not to understand them but to weaponize them, who mistakes surveillance for community and enforcement for respect. What they never account for is the person who actually reads the whole document. Becca still lives on Elmwood Close. Biscuit still sits on the pavement occasionally. The wind chime still hangs by the front door. The doormat remains, by all reasonable measures, aggressively casual. And nobody has filed a single complaint about any of it since. Some people learn too late that the rules you use to go after others apply to you too. And karma? Karma keeps excellent records. Color-coded ones, apparently. This has been served cold. I'll see you tomorrow.